The moment their eyes met across the crowded farmer's market, time seemed to freeze. Ethan stood paralyzed, coffee cup suspended halfway to his lips, as he took in the sight of Rebecca, his ex-wife of 7 months, her hand resting protectively over a clearly pregnant belly. She was radiant, more beautiful than he remembered, her skin glowing in the morning sunlight. Before he could process what he was seeing, she spotted him too. The look that passed between them contained 7 years of marriage, the pain of their divorce, and something else entirely, something neither of them was prepared for. Hey everyone, welcome back to True Heart Stories. If you're new here, I share real stories of love, loss, and everything in between. Today's story about Ethan and Rebecca might just change how you think about second chances. If their journey resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of storytellers and listeners. Ethan had always believed their divorce was the right decision. They had grown apart, their careers pulling them in different directions, the dream of starting a family repeatedly shattered by 3 devastating miscarriages. The final one had broken something fundamental between them. They had separated amicably enough, dividing their possessions, selling their modest suburban home, and going their separate ways without drama. At least, that's what he told himself. But seeing Rebecca now, pregnant and glowing, unleashed a torrent of emotions he thought he'd buried. Confusion, anger, jealousy, and underneath it all, a persistent ache of longing that caught him completely off guard. "Rebecca," he managed to say, his voice barely audible above the bustling market crowd. "Ethan," she replied, her hand instinctively tightening around her belly. "I didn't expect to see you here. I moved to the neighborhood last month," he explained, unable to tear his eyes away from her stomach. You're 6 months, she said, answering his unspoken question. "It's a girl." The revelation hit him like a physical blow. 6 months pregnant meant she had conceived shortly after their divorce was finalized. Had she been seeing someone during their marriage? Had she moved on that quickly? The questions swirled in his mind, making him dizzy with their implications. "Congratulations," he said automatically, the word tasting bitter on his tongue. "I should go." "Ethan, wait," she called after him, but he was already walking away, pushing through the crowd, desperate for air. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Images of Rebecca kept flashing through his mind, Rebecca on their wedding day, Rebecca sobbing in the hospital after their 3rd miscarriage, Rebecca today, pregnant and beautiful. He had thought he was over her, had convinced himself their divorce was mutual and necessary. But seeing her carrying a child, the very thing they had wanted together for so long, reopened wounds he thought had healed. The next morning, against his better judgment, he texted her. A simple message, "Can we talk?" Her reply came almost immediately, "Coffee shop on Maple, 2 p.m.? The coffee shop was quiet when he arrived, deliberately early to collect his thoughts. When Rebecca walked in, several heads turned. She wore a simple sundress that accentuated her pregnancy, her long brown hair loose around her shoulders. Ethan felt his heart race as she approached. "Thank you for meeting me," he said as she eased herself into the chair across from him. "I think we have some things to clear up," she replied, her voice steady but her fingers nervously playing with the paper napkin. "Who is he?" Ethan asked, the question that had been tormenting him since yesterday. Rebecca looked confused. "Who is who?" "The father," Ethan clarified, trying to keep the accusation out of his voice. Rebecca's expression shifted from confusion to understanding, then to something like hurt. "There is no he, Ethan. I don't understand." She took a deep breath. "After we separated, I decided to try IVF with a donor. I couldn't let go of wanting to be a mother, even if our marriage was over. I didn't tell you because, well, it didn't seem like your business anymore." The revelation stunned him. "You're doing this alone?" "Yes," she said simply. "It wasn't my first choice, but life doesn't always give us what we want in the package we expect." Ethan sat back, processing this information. All the anger and jealousy he'd felt dissipated, replaced by a complex mixture of relief and sadness. "I'm sorry for assuming." "It's okay," she said. "It's a natural conclusion. How are you feeling?" "Is everything healthy?" he asked, genuinely concerned. Her face softened. "Everything's perfect this time. The doctors say she's developing beautifully." "I'm glad," he said, and meant it. They talked for hours that afternoon, longer than either had intended. Rebecca told him about her decision to try IVF, how she'd moved to a new apartment with an extra bedroom for the nursery, how her parents were supportive but worried about her doing it alone. Ethan shared about his new job, his small apartment, the cooking classes he'd started taking to fill his evenings. As they talked, something shifted between them. The bitterness and pain that had characterized their final months together seemed distant now, replaced by a tentative warmth, a remembrance of why they had fallen in love in the first place. "I should go," Rebecca said eventually, checking her watch. "I have a prenatal yoga class. Can I walk you?" Ethan offered, surprising himself. She smiled, that same smile that had once been the highlight of his days. "I'd like that." Over the next few weeks, they began to see each other regularly. Just as friends, they both insisted, though neither quite believed it. Ethan found himself looking forward to their meetings with an intensity that both thrilled and terrified him. He started reading books about pregnancy, about childbirth, about raising daughters. He didn't examine too closely why he was doing this. One evening, as they walked through the park after dinner, Rebecca suddenly gasped and grabbed his hand, placing it on her belly. "Feel that? She's kicking." Ethan felt the flutter of movement beneath his palm and was overcome with emotion. This was what they had wanted together, what they had grieved together. And now, here it was, happening in a way neither of them had imagined. "Rebecca," he said, his voice thick. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about what went wrong." She looked at him cautiously. "Ethan. No, please, let me say this. I think we gave up too easily. The miscarriages were devastating, and we were both hurting so much. But instead of turning toward each other, we turned away. I turned away. And I've regretted it every day since." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "I've thought that too. But things are different now. I'm having a baby, Ethan. A baby that isn't yours." "I know," he said. "And I know this sounds crazy, but I don't care. I love you, Rebecca. I never stopped loving you. And I already love this little girl, because she's a part of you." "You can't mean that," she whispered, though hope flickered in her eyes. "I do," he insisted. "I'm not saying we should rush back into marriage or anything like that. But I want to be there for you, for both of you, if you'll let me." Rebecca didn't answer immediately. Instead, she leaned forward and kissed him, a gentle, questioning kiss that held both their past and a possible future. The next 3 months were a whirlwind. Ethan attended every doctor's appointment, helped paint the nursery, assembled furniture, and held Rebecca's hand through Lamaze classes. They took things slowly in their relationship, both aware of the stakes. They talked, really talked, about the pain of their miscarriages, about their fears and hopes, about what they wanted for the future. When Rebecca went into labor 2 weeks early, Ethan was the one who drove her to the hospital, who stayed by her side through 18 hours of labor, who held her hand and wiped her brow and told her she was the strongest person he'd ever known. And when little Lily came into the world, red-faced and screaming, Ethan cut the cord with trembling hands. The nurse placed the baby on Rebecca's chest, and as Ethan looked down at them both, Rebecca exhausted but radiant, Lily perfect and he knew with absolute certainty that this was his family. "She's beautiful," he whispered, touching Lily's tiny hand with his finger. "Just like her mother." Rebecca looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for being here. There's nowhere else I'd rather be," he said. "I love you both so much." 6 months later, Ethan proposed again, this time in the nursery while Lily slept peacefully in her crib. Rebecca said yes without hesitation. Their second wedding was small and intimate, with Lily, now a year old, serving as the flower girl in a tiny dress that matched her mother's. As they exchanged vows, Ethan added a special promise to Lily, vowing to love and protect her as his own daughter for all his days. The adoption papers were finalized on Lily's second birthday, making official what had been true in Ethan's heart from the moment he felt her kick in Rebecca's womb. She was his daughter in every way that mattered. Life wasn't perfect. They still had disagreements, still had to work through the scars of their past. But they faced each challenge together, stronger for having almost lost each other. On their 5th anniversary, as they watched Lily playing in the backyard of their new home, Rebecca turned to Ethan with a smile. "Do you ever think about how close we came to missing this? To missing her?" Ethan pulled her close, his hand resting on the slight swell of her stomach where their second child, a boy, according to the ultrasound, was growing strong and healthy. "Every day," he admitted. "But then I remember that some love stories take detours before finding their way home." Rebecca leaned her head against his shoulder. "I'm glad we found our way back." "Me too," he said, kissing the top of her head. "Me too." Sometimes, the greatest love stories aren't about perfect people finding each other, but about imperfect people losing each other and then fighting their way back. Ethan and Rebecca's journey reminds us that second chances sometimes come in unexpected packages, and that family isn't always defined by blood, but by love, choice, and commitment. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories of love and redemption. Remember, it's never too late to rewrite your own love story. Until next time, keep your hearts open to the possibilities that life has to offer.